Each and every Monday is $9 Monday at WagerTalk.com, and all daily picks packages are priced at only $9, including 5% best bets normally priced at $35. As an added bonus, any picks packages loaded early for overnight Tuesday or action during the week will also be priced at $9 until midnight on Monday. So make sure to take advantage of getting these $25 and $35 picks for only $9 before the clock strikes 12 and they return to regular price.
Welcome into the NFL Opening Line Report Playoff Edition. I am Drew Martin, joined by Teddy Covers. Huge shout out to the 19,000 people that watched last week. Playoff Edition is heating up here, Teddy. We had a great show last week, looking to do it again this week. Welcome in, bud. Happy Monday morning to you.
Hey, great to be here, Drew. Unfortunately, my clients hate me this morning. My bankroll hates me this morning. I did not have a good opening weekend of the playoffs, and I've been so good in the wild card round the last, the last 4 years I hadn't lost a game, and this week the two free plays were good. I gave out a couple of big game breakdowns on WagerTalk today and talked about the Bills and the Chiefs, and those ended up being right. My plays for the clients, unfortunately, stunk up the joint. The only one that really had a chance was the Raiders, and they didn't get there at the end. So, but the bottom line is we got one game for tonight, and we'll break down Rams and Cardinals, talk about where that line has gone, what the nuances of that game are. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. Let's do opening line report preview style at the top.
Absolutely, guys. We will be hitting all these games down in order of rotation order, in order of kickoff at the WagerTalk odds screen. But first, Teddy, did want to bring up a point because you said you had a not that great of a weekend for the clients, but the free plays were there. I'll tell you this, man, just being the host of this show, coming off of COVID, you kind of carried us last week. I was taking notes. I got to point out something because I'm surprised you didn't have that great of a client card, because I used it for my client card in terms of the strength of schedule and wild card weekend was absolutely money, man. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Dallas Cowboys not really showing up there from the NFC, being near the bottom of the strength of schedule. And the teams they played against, the San Francisco 49ers, also the Kansas City Chiefs had a top strength of schedule. And of course, the Tampa Bay Bucs as well in the top 10. That was an absolute money maker trend, just betting the better strength of schedule in the wild card round. It was top of mind with you last week, so I need to tip my cap. I know a lot of listeners out there in the comments last week on the video were saying positive things about it, Teddy. So hey, I just wanted first to point that out. That was great information last week. And second, is there anything like that trend-wise going into the divisional round, maybe even that same trend of the stronger strength of schedule that you would look for off the top of your head in order to find more winners than losers?
Well, I mean, the one big strength of schedule disparity last week was the Raiders against the Bengals, and that's what got me on Vegas in a game, in a what was a tough spot, and it showed. They made a bunch of mistakes early and ended up costing them the game. From a spot standpoint, it was a tough spot for the Raiders, and again, it showed that way. And that was the only significant strength of schedule differential between the teams. Buffalo had the weaker strength of schedule against New England. Philly and Tampa were both near the bottom of the league. San Fran and Dallas were both mediocre in that regard. San Fran has a slightly better strength of schedule, but again, not based on my numbers. The games the week that were the games that were played. There is a strength of schedule disparity tonight between the Cardinals and the Rams, but we'll tease that for later. But it wasn't one of those years where there were a bunch of games that fit into the category. There was one that I used specifically because of that, and it ended up being a pretty frustrating loser in that regard. So the information's solid. Look, the information hasn't gone anywhere, and it's once again next year when it comes to wild card round, we will absolutely look for strength of schedule info. This was one of those years, however, that the disparities between many of the teams weren't great. And the one where there was a huge disparity, the one that we've seen so far, didn't pan out the way that we hoped that it might with the Raiders and the Bengals.
All right, guys, let's get after it. NFL opening line report style playoff edition. 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. Going on WagerTalk odds screen down in rotation order, 4:30 Eastern, 1:30 Pacific kick here. We get the Cincinnati Bengals and the number 1 seed Tennessee Titans. Maybe riding a little bit under the radar here. Don't remember a 1 seed being kind of not talked about like the Titans are this year, Teddy. We're seeing -3 in the hook at most shops, so -3 with some juice on that. That's the Tennessee Titans at home as the favorite, 47 being the total. What are you liking in Nashville to kick us off here, Teddy?
So we have no look-ahead lines, obviously, for the divisional round of the playoffs. So all we have are powering numbers, openers, and where the markets have moved. Cincinnati, Tennessee, my powering number for the game is 3. The markets opened up 2.5/3 last night. And basically, we've seen, I'm going to call it steady Tennessee money. 3.5s are popping. The markets have not fully moved to 3.5 yet, and there has been some resistance at that number. We're going to call this line 3.25 right now. If you want a -3 with Tennessee, you can still find it at -120. Those are widely available. If you want a +3.5 with Cincinnati, you can find that as well. You'll have to lay -120 that way, but that 20 cents is worth it. -3 versus +3.5. It's one of those spots where, depending on which side you like, you can make a wager. Now, I'm not convinced this line is going to 3.5 everywhere. And again, my powering number is only 3 on the game. There's a fair bit of anti-Tennessee bias in the betting market. Some of the advanced metric numbers for Tennessee weren't that good. The strength of schedule numbers for Tennessee weren't that good. I got them, Sagarin has them ranked 24th. Based on my powering numbers on the week the game was played, I have them as slightly weaker than average strength of schedule for Tennessee. And the question of Derrick Henry, obviously, who was the key to Tennessee's offense for the first half of the season. There's a decent chance he's going to be back this week. I don't know that Derrick Henry's it. The running backs are rarely difference makers for me at ATS. And it's not like the running game hasn't worked without Henry. They've been able to run the football in recent weeks. And Tennessee's got some very mediocre offensive numbers. Let's not forget for most of the second half of the season, the Titans were playing with one hand tied behind their back, minimum. They had injuries everywhere. Injuries in the offensive line, injuries by basically all their skill position talent was hurt at one point. And that's not the case coming to the postseason. So it's a Titans team that is battle tested. They've been to the postseason in recent years. They are a team whose statistical profile may not accurately reflect how good they are right now. And Cincinnati's got, I'm not going to call them flavor of the week on them, but Joe Burrow came out and played really well early, and then they hung on for a win. And a lot of times you'll like the teams that don't necessarily bring their A game one week. They find a way to survive in advance and move on to the next round. Cincinnati's not going to be a popular wise guy choice this week. All right. The rested home team versus the upstart, even with a QB like Joe Burrow. You can already see, there's a reason that this line 2.5, 3 last night, 3.5 this morning. That's sharp money. That's wise guy money. So there has been already some support for the Titans. But are we going to see the level of support that drives this line up to 3.5 everywhere? Again, I'm not convinced that's the case right now. We might. And I guess in terms of the urgency, I would say if you like Tennessee at 3 -20 right now might be the bet to make. Whereas Cincinnati, there's a chance that you'll see a higher number. In fact, at one book here in Vegas, we just saw 4 pop up on this game, which, that's a public book, which surprises me a little bit because Cincy's the team that played this past week. And in general, in the divisional round of the playoffs, bettors remember exactly what they just saw. What did they just see? Titans didn't play. Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Burrow were incredible in that game, for extended stretches. Maybe not in the fourth quarter, but when you have just seen Cincinnati show explosiveness and get the stops they needed to get, I'm not surprised. Wouldn't be surprised if there is a fair bit of public support for the Bengals this week. Tennessee, not a public team in that regard.
Yeah, I like the breakdown a lot, Teddy. I'm picking up what you're laying down there, especially on the Cincinnati side of things. Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase kind of coming out, the flavor of the week. I'm kind of resonating with that, Teddy. And then Joe Burrow comes out in the press conference. Not sure if you saw it with those glasses, a little bit flashy style. I don't know. It seems like a good time to fade this. And Tennessee coming off of that bye week, Derrick Henry maybe coming back. And of course, you bring up the running backs, Teddy, not being a big. I've always looked at Derrick Henry as like the one guy that might matter a little bit more point spread wise, but I get what you're saying there. Did you have any final points before we move on?
Yeah, I mean, there was something you were going to say, and I just spaced on it because I started thinking about Derrick Henry.
Okay.
What
one
saying?
question I do have. Yeah, go ahead, Teddy.
Huh?
No,
one question I do.
Throw
a question.
Yeah, I do have for you is because you bring up the -3.5, and it is kind of teetering there. And the all-important 3 number in the NFL, guys, is really the most key number there is. And we're seeing -3, -120 at DraftKings. We're seeing -3.5. And by the way, guys, I'm going off the WagerTalk odds screen, best free live odds in the business. We're seeing 3.5 at a lot of shops. Is there a cutoff to where the better bet is at -120, at -125? I would still personally like the -3 because of how key it is. Will sportsbooks get to -130 given it a playoff game? Will they get to -135? Is there a cutoff there, Teddy, at where you would kind of jump to the 3.5?
Not usually. The books are. The cutoff would be at a quarter, at -125. Okay. At -120, the math says you lay 3 and you take 3.5 at -125. The math is slightly different and just enough to say that it's not, when you're talking about 25 cents worth of juice, it's worth between like 21, 22 cents. So 25 cents is a little bit much. 20 cents is a little bit cheap in that regard. I want to talk about Donta Foreman. That's what I was thinking about with Derrick Henry and Donta, because look at the numbers for the year. For the season, Derrick Henry, 4.3 yards per carry. Donta Foreman, 4.3 yards per carry. Big rushes. Donta Foreman had more big gainers than Derrick Henry did over the course of the season. So, and then, it's not like Hillier's got a bunch of plays, but he averaged 6.3 yards per carry. So when the offensive line steps up, the running backs are all the same. When the offensive line is crappy, Derrick Henry makes a difference. When the offensive line plays like the Titans did, there's not a huge difference. I remember my other point that I wanted to make about Tennessee defensively. Because the Titans are another team. Their stats aren't great. Even their defensive stats aren't great. But that A was an injury-riddled defense as well. And B, their defensive stats do not necessarily correlate to how good that defense was. You can say it's random, but the Titans defense made plays all year long. Big plays at big times. And that's the kind of thing that doesn't always show in a statistical profile. It's the kind of thing you're only aware of if you watch the Titans every week. You're like, wow, that defense did it again. Wow, they made the play to win the game again. It may not be a statistically dominant defense, but in terms of game-winning situations, Tennessee's defense played really well in tight games, and the markets may not be giving them credit for that.
Absolutely, Teddy. It's been a great defense all year long. Also, great point there in terms of, how much does the running back matter, guys? We talk about it a lot with the quarterback position. How much does a quarterback matter to the point spread if he's out? It's really only half the equation, maybe positively a little bit more than half the equation, but a lot of it matters who the backup is. And like Teddy just kind of read off there, 4.3 yards per carry. The drop-off, because the backup's so good, is not all that big of a drop-off. So good point there, Teddy. We got first game down. We got the nightcap here on Saturday. Again, guys, 2 Saturday games, 2 Sunday games, divisional round of the NFL playoffs. Saturday nightcap here, Teddy, San Francisco 49ers. Green Bay Packers, the history, the ghosts are out there. This is going to be a good one. 47.5 being the total in Lambeau Field. -5 is what we're seeing at the opener. Now, a lot of -5 in the hooks are out there, Teddy. That's the Packers favored at home. What do you like in Green Bay, Wisconsin, Saturday night?
So again, no look-ahead line for this one. My powering number is Green Bay -5.5. The market's opened 4.5 yesterday. It was basically 5.5 last night at most books. There is a prominent 5 in Vegas, but it's mostly 5.5. It's not like 5.5, the keyest numbers in the world. I don't think it goes up. I don't think it goes down. I think this line's sitting right here. In terms of urgency, what's the urgency? There's no urgency. Now, we certainly saw San Francisco have Green Bay's number in some pretty big games. Niners going up to Lambeau and winning 37-8 back in 2019. Niners, at home, 37-8. And then in the playoffs in 2020, 37-20 with San Fran just running all over Green Bay. And of course, they've met twice in the regular season each of the last 2 years, both meetings also in San Francisco. This time the Packers have won 34-17, 30-28. So Green Bay has found a way defensively. You remember those first two meetings, certainly the playoff meeting where all San Fran did was just hand the ball off and Green Bay couldn't stop it. And basically for the last couple of off seasons, the Packers have been like, we need to build our defense to stop this power running game. And it's worked fairly well in the last two meetings. Again, the teams that are coming off the bye week tend to get the wise guy support, not the public support. The public's going to like the team that they just saw. San Fran's the team they just saw looking good, knocking off Dallas, the only underdog to win so far, at least on wild card weekend. For the 49ers. They did it the same way they've been doing it. They were able to run the football and make defensive plays. San Fran is 8-2 in their last 10 games. They have a fair bit of wise guy support in the betting markets. And again, they have that track record against Green Bay. And of course, the Packers, when these two teams played earlier in the season, Green Bay was a 3.5-point dog in San Fran. Again, they won by 2. They win this one by 2. Not enough to cover this number, and the 49ers did move the football in that game to 28 points. But Green Bay was, the better of the two squads, and still is the better of the two squads. Now, San Fran's been a bad team for me this year in a bunch of different ways. I've been bad betting on the Niners. I've been bad betting against the Niners. But Jimmy G, San Fran was able to win yesterday without having to do much with Jimmy G. 16-25, 172 yards, the one interception. But Garoppolo they didn't need him to do much. They didn't ask him to do much, and he didn't do much. If San Fran is playing from behind and Jimmy G has to make throws in the cold, San Fran's going to lose. They're going to get pounded. Garoppolo, arguably the weakest quarterback still standing in the NFL playoffs right now.
Interesting take, Teddy. And just a follow-up question to it, because two things concerning me. I like the San Francisco defense like you talked about. I think if they can, I want to say stay with the Packers throughout the game, they got a real shot here. But two concerns I want to run by you. One, back-to-back road games here in the NFL playoffs heading east. Is that a concern for you, especially now playing on Saturday, the short week here being back-to-back road games? And two, this 49ers defense, a little bit banged up. I think there's some question marks going into this week in terms of how healthy they will be on the defensive side. How much are those kind of worrying you? If somebody out there looking to bet the Niners, how much are those at the forefront of your handicap?
They're both a concern. If I'm playing this game, I'm laying. All right, I will not be on San Fran. I'll be on Green Bay or I'm passing the game. Much like the first game, my initial lean is Tennessee. This game, my initial lean is also towards a favorite. And it's not atypical for the divisional round. The divisional rounds, a lot of times I want the home teams, I want the favorites, and I want to be betting against the teams that have to go on the highway. But you talked about the first road win, and now you got to go for the second road win. That's not nearly as negative as win at home, and then you got to go on the road. That home win in the first round, and then you hit the highway. The different mentality there, as opposed to, all right, hey, we know we got to go on the highway, and we know we got to go on the highway again, and every game we play here on the road is, that's how we see these wild card teams make the run to the Super Bowl, like it's happened. It hasn't happened the last couple of years, but it's happened in the last decade, 3 or 4 times. That road warrior mentality is a benefit in many ways for San Fran. Having won on the road, now to do it again. Yeah. Of course, very different conditions at Lambeau than there were in Jerry's world. I haven't looked at the forecast for the weekend, but, January night games at Lambeau Field are not necessarily the best scenario for warm weather teams, and not, like San Fran that doesn't deal with a brutal cold. But
sure.
The 49ers run the football, which is exactly what you want from a team that that is going to go into the cold. So there's the plus to go along with the minus. I think Green Bay is the better squad.
Sure, Teddy. Yeah, profile-wise, I guess the Niners, what they do offensively, if it is a bad weather game here, like Teddy just talked about, guys, in January in Lambeau, watch out, check these weather reports as we're still, 5-6 days away from this game, Saturday night in Lambeau Field, San Francisco versus Green Bay. This is Monday morning here, NFL opening line report style, Teddy coverage, Drew Martin breaking it down each and every Monday morning, 10 a.m. Pacific time, right here on the Wager Talk YouTube channel. Huge shout out to the chat box, everybody joining us live. We got Roger Long, Fortnot in the house, Charles Anderson, all you guys, Brent Hall, thanks for joining us. Feel free to chime in where you agree with us, where you disagree with us. And if you're watching on replay, that works as well. We welcome you in, and please comment below if you're liking the show, what you're looking to bet on, where you agree and disagree. All is welcome. We got next game up, afternoon kick on Sunday, January 23rd, Tampa Bay versus the winner of the Monday night game. I guess we could kind of mesh that in, or actually we could hit it now since we got the graphic. Which one would you rather do here, Teddy?
Well, I just want to talk about Tampa Bay and what my numbers are.
Okay. Let's do it.
I got Tampa Bay -6.5 against the Rams and -7.5 against Arizona, depending on who wins tonight. And just looking at them, they feel high. But my pure powering number is Tampa 6.5 against the Rams, 7.5 against Arizona. I think if the Rams win and look good, it'll come shorter than that. I'm sure it will. It'll come 4.5, maybe. If Arizona wins, maybe it comes 6.5, 7. But that's my powering number: 6.5 Rams, 7.5 Cardinals. We'll see who Tampa faces tonight. Certainly, the Bucs last year were road warriors on their way to the Super Bowl. Yeah, they made it. It was last year Tampa won all those games on the road to make the Super Bowl. I was like, oh, it hasn't happened in the last couple years. Of course it did. It happened last year. So that first road win certainly has the potential to build momentum. But I would expect the Bucs to be touchdown or less, regardless of the two opponents, even though against Arizona my number is 7.5. I'll explain why my number is a little bit higher when we talk about that game in just a moment.
Sure. We'll get one game in between here. It's actually the last game on the board, 6:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 Pacific here. Sunday night, guys, we get the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs. Talk about a great matchup, quarterback-wise, offensive, defensive. This is going to be a good one in Arrowhead Stadium, Kansas City, Missouri. -2, -2.5, depending where we're shopping right now. That's the Kansas City Chiefs as the home favorite, 54.5 or 55 being the total. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs, Teddy, to end it, divisional round. What are we liking here?
Yeah, and I can't, there was a chance I would have given an emergency betting alert for this game. Okay, it might's going to go up to 3. This game's not going to 3. I said if it hits 3 for a minute, the Bills' money will come in. So there's no emergency betting alerts on today's show. I'm not going to make one up just to have one. My number is KC -3, even money. The market's 2.5 this morning. If you like the Chiefs, you can find a 2 right now. I wouldn't talk you out of it. It's not going to go lower than 2, I wouldn't think. And these two teams have played a bunch of times the last 2 years. They played in the regular season last year. They played in the regular season, in 2020. Well, this is the 21 season. Yeah, that was last year. They played in the regular season last year, 26-17 Kansas City. They played in the playoffs last year, 38-24 Kansas City. The first meeting in Buffalo, the second meeting, the rematch at Arrowhead. And then, of course, they played earlier this year, and it was a very different story. The Bills did whatever they wanted to in that ballgame and basically blew the Chiefs out. It is worth noting last year in the playoffs was 9-0 after one Buffalo, and then all Kansas City the rest of the way. Not that dissimilar to what happened with the Chiefs in yesterday's game against Pittsburgh, where they fell behind early on a defensive score and then rattled off touchdown after touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. That's what the Chiefs offense certainly is capable of doing. That being said, and apparently I say that a lot. They make fun of me in the chat because I say, that being said, and I go on to the opposite side of it. But I can understand the market support for Buffalo here. Again, in the regular season this year, the Bills were the better of these two teams. The Bills have been knocking at the door in the postseason in recent seasons, making it the AFC Championship game last year. So it's not like they're playoff virgins. Buffalo's been here, and unlike Kansas City, they haven't been to the biggest stage. There's a sense of urgency for the Bills that is impressive, and it certainly showed against the Patriots over the weekend. Now, when you look at the full season numbers and all of that, of course, there's going to be some KC support at home at Arrowhead, where they played so well, and it's a Chiefs team that, despite their early season struggles, came on like a freight train down the stretch. But sometimes the betting markets tell you, like the Dallas Cowboys being only 3 at home, and every other home favorite's more than that. And you're like, wow, Dallas is cheap. Well, Dallas is cheap for a reason. Kansas City's cheap this week.
Yeah, maybe Vegas is telling us something, guys. Seeing 2 out there, 2.5 as well popping up. Buffalo Bills, Kansas City Chiefs to end it. We do have the Monday Nighter. Again, guys, talking 10 a.m. Pacific time each and every Monday here. The NFL opening line report on the WagerTalk YouTube channel. Teddy covers, Drew Martin breaking it down here. 151, 152. The inaugural Monday night football game, NFL playoff style, NFC West rematch, or the trifecta here. Arizona Cardinals, LA Rams, guys, 49.5 the total. We are seeing 50s pop up now, and -3.5. That's the Rams pretty much across the board here, Teddy. Arizona Cardinals making the trip over SoFi Stadium, Inglewood, California. What are you liking in the NFC West trifecta here, Cardinals and Rams, Teddy?
Yeah, and of course, last week at this time, I talked about the Rams and my powering number being 4 on LA. And the markets have moved down even further on that. We saw the markets move from 4 to 3.5 when it was announced that both LA starting safeties were going to be out. When you bring in they bring in Eric Weddle to start. All right, Eric Weddle's not coming off that. He's supposed to start. He's been retired for 2 years. Okay.
Yeah.
So that tells us where LA is on a defensive standpoint right now. It's a major concern for the Rams defensively. And of course, when you look at Arizona, all they did all year was win games on the road. They had no home field edge, but they won consistently on the highway, week in, week out. They beat playoff teams on the highway. They absolutely played their best football away from home throughout the course of the campaign. So I'm not surprised that we've seen some Cardinals money, given the safety issues, given Arizona's strength on the road this season. And yet I can't get to the window with Arizona. They did not play good football down the stretch. And they had multiple tries to kind of figure things out, and it didn't get there. And you look at the injury report for tonight again. When you take DeAndre Hopkins out of any offense, you're going to notice the difference. And they have. Now Rondell Moore may not play tonight. James Conner may not play tonight. Marco Wilson may not play tonight in the secondary. Those are big concerns. All 3 of those impact. I don't know Conner. I don't worry about the running backs too much. Although Conner has a nose for the end zone. This is the game where Arizona wants him and needs him. And then you have Cliff Kingsbury, a playoff virgin, putting all the pressure on his QB. Oh yeah, I think Kyler Murray's going to have the best game of his career tonight. Murray hasn't played good football in more than a month. And you watch Arizona, they've looked lifeless at weird times in weird games. And that makes me very reluctant to back the Cardinals here. And you'll, of course, look at the series history here. And it's been Rams. The only time Arizona's won was that one meeting at SoFi earlier this season in the last 10 meetings between these two teams. And, of course, the Rams got their payback in Arizona in the later of the 2 meetings. The problem with laying it, again, you're laying more than a field goal against a team that's been dynamite on the road. And I don't trust Matthew Stafford. I flat out do not trust that quarterback in a game of this magnitude. Stafford's never won a wild card game. I've never seen him look good in a wild card game. I've got my concerns about LA's great white hope as to whether he can actually live up to those expectations. So I'm not going to lay 3.5 with Stafford. I don't trust Arizona. I had a crappy weekend. We'll leave tonight's game alone personally and see if we can come back next week and find some right sides as opposed to trying to force something in this evening.
I like it, Teddy. Good stuff there on Stafford as well. Going back to his college days at University of Georgia, they had some good teams, and he never really won the big games. And you're right,
Never.
there might be something there, guys, something to watch. He can throw a pretty football, no doubt about it. But winning big games at the quarterback position is kind of a different story. So he's going to be at the forefront here, spotlight on him. We'll see how he reacts. Also talking about. Yeah, go ahead, Teddy, because I got a
Well, as you say, remember, the Rams don't just have to win. The Rams got to win by margin.
Cover.
The Rams got to win. A field goal win doesn't cover any, it doesn't help you if you got an LA Rams ticket. So not only does Stafford have to actually win a playoff game or a big game, and you're right, dating back to Georgia. I can't think of a big game Matthew Stafford has won anywhere, ever. I'm sure there's one that I missed. He probably won a game that get him into the playoffs one time. But on my list of QBs I trust, Stafford's not high on the list. And Murray, without his best receivers, isn't high on that list either. Maybe look under tonight. 49.5, 50. It's not like the first round. We already, the first round has a long-term bent to the unders. The wild card round, Ralph Michaels came on Wager Talk today last week. Was talking about it was better than 67% unders, 31 and 15 over a decade plus span. So it's not a short-term sample size. We've already seen 3 unders in 5 games this week. If it's going to hit the 4 out of 6 or the 67%, that means tonight's game goes under 2, and I wouldn't be surprised if it does. If I had to make one bet on tonight's game, that's probably what I would look. But then again, you hate to bet an under on the Monday night game. If I'm playing to be under, it would. That's the one that makes the most sense to me. Don't trust the two QBs.
Okay. And guys, the play I like the most is talking about Kyler Murray here, going after him, kind of pinpointing him from a prop bet perspective. Been watching the Arizona Cardinals pretty tightly here towards the end of the season. Again, the Arizona Cardinals were the team that kind of jumped out, had the best record in football, and then down the stretch didn't play all that well. So you kind of wonder, are they a team, they kind of peaked in October. How are they going to kind of rebound here in the NFL playoffs? But one thing I want to go after with Kyler Murray, keep in mind how good of an athlete he is. Yes, he can throw the football, but he's one of the quickest guys in the NFL, and he was banged up. And I think a lot of people are kind of putting that on the back burner in terms of how important his health is, just because of how he plays the game at the quarterback position. And he's getting healthier here at the end of the season since being injured. And I think it being a win or go home situation, his rushing prop as of last night was 38.5 when I bet it. I like it to the over, Teddy. I really do. I think this, Rams defense in the defensive backfield being banged up, that might help him. Heck, 1 or 2 runs could get him over this 38.5 rushing prop. I think he's actually going to kind of put the team on his shoulders in this type of situation. I like his rushing prop over 38.5. So that's how I'm going after this Monday Night Football game. Teddy, anything on that? And also want to ask you a question here, because we got people in the chat box kind of throwing out questions, which right now, guys, is the time. If you're watching live, please chime in with any questions in the chat box. Teddy, do you like this format of playing Monday Night Football as part of the NFL playoff scheduling?
So let me start with Kyler Murray. All right.
Yeah.
Again, 2 games against the Rams this year. The first one, 7 carries for 61 yards, a long of 17. Oh, yeah. So it wasn't one long scramble. It was consistent. The other meeting, 6 for 39. And again, 1 for 18. It wasn't one, 50-yard scrambler or anything. He actually had only one run longer than 20 yards all year for Kyler Murray. So it wasn't like he was breaking off these ridiculous big plays, but scrambling out of pressure to get the first downs. He did go over that number in both meetings against LA. LA does have a good pass rush. And in theory, it's the type of game that you would expect Murray to be chased out of the pocket a fair bit. And of course, looking at this number at 38.5, he's gone over that number by margin 4 times in his last 6 ball games since the beginning of December. So that I wouldn't talk anyone out of making that Kyler Murray over rushing prop. That makes a whole lot of sense to me, Drew. What was the other question that you wanted that I was supposed to respond to?
Yeah, sure. I know. I like that you said that, Teddy. And you bring up a good point in terms of the defensive line being good. Sometimes that would keep people off of it. Actually, the type of profile he is as a quarterback, that's going to help him with the rush props even more, because it's going to keep him scrambling out there. And the statistical profile here, guys, it's different than college. Sacks don't work against rushing yards. So if he is getting sacked, that's going to work against his passing yards. Keep that in mind. So that was a good point, Teddy. And my final question was just before we hit the questions here in the chat box. Do you like the scheduling format? And guys in the chat box, let us know here and reply below. Do you like the NFL kind of squaring this out and getting it to Monday Night Football as part of the playoffs, or would you rather them stack it up? 3 games on Saturday, 3 games on Sunday, Teddy?
I don't care.
Okay. Hey, well, just hit it.
Give me the game. I mean, honestly, I'd rather have all the lines in place right now so we can do a proper opening line report instead of a 3/4 open. But
okay.
It's for the casual fan, I'm sure it's great. Monday Night Football. I don't know. I mean, I don't have any objection to it. It's not like the format's changed. Oh, you kids get off my lawn. None of that. It's fine. But I'm not like, I'm super excited. There's a Monday night game. Okay, it's a Monday night. Fine.
Okay.
It doesn't matter if it was Saturday night, Sunday night, Friday night. We'll find a way to watch it.
I'll stay off your lawn, Teddy. He's not going to be stay off your lawn, guys. He's Teddy Covers on Twitter, @Teddy_Covers. I'm on Twitter, @DrewMartinBets. Guys, hit us up on Twitter. Feel free to fire out any questions, guys. Now's the time. If you're liking the content, please smash that like button. We got Coin chiming in, and also Hector adding, hey, please answer this question. So I got to ask that when 2 guys ask the same question. Can you guys touch on the Sagarin ratings again for the divisional round? One thing I'll say to this to pop up before I throw it over to Teddy, guys, the Sagarin ratings are kind of available out there. You could just use Google, like Teddy replied in the replies below last week. So it's not like, proprietary information. It's out there, and just use who has the better strength of schedule over their opponent. And it's been money over the course of since 2002, over 60%. That's in the wild card round. I don't know about the divisional round, if it is that big a percentage. I would think it carries over, but Teddy, I'll throw it over to you. How important is the Sagarin ratings?
Not important at all. What's important?
Okay.
It's important in the wild card round. That's why we bring it up. There's no system that's as strong as that in any of the other playoff rounds that I know of. Now they had the Sagarin strength schedule, and I know the poor guy in the chat. He's like, what do we do with the Sagarin? I'm like, Google is a powerful tool, which it is. When you have these questions, Google it. You'll find it. Sagarin ratings for NFL. Of course, I use my power ratings in addition to the Sagarin rating. So I'm going to get sometimes some different numbers compared to the Sagarin ratings. That was certainly the case in a couple of games last week. I had Tampa much. Well, Sagarin had them ranked 30th. I had them ranked as the weakest team in the NFL. But what was interesting to me about Sagarin, again, and I don't track it all year round, but when I came on the show last week, I actually was looking at, I wrote down the numbers Sunday night, and they got adjusted on Monday morning. So I was using stale numbers. So I went back to look because I was very curious as to how much the Sagarin numbers changed after a single game. Buffalo went from 27 to 32nd. This is the week 18 games, so the 17th week of the season. Buffalo moved 5 spots off of that. Tampa moved 7 spots because they played Carolina in week 18. Arizona moved down because they played the Rams. They moved 4 spots down. I thought some of the moves were really, off of the one game were too much for Sagarin. When you're taking, your strength of schedule for Tampa Bay, it was 23rd in the NFL, but now it's 30th because you played the Panthers in the final week of the season. That's a big drop off of one game. That's why I like my system better, where I'm looking at my numbers every week. And even if one team's way down, it's not going to affect the whole season in as much. Again, the Sagarin numbers, I'm not a fan of his process. I'm not a fan of his numbers. I don't recommend Sagarin numbers for anything other than wild card round. I like my numbers better. That's why I make them every week. I take the time to do that. But certainly for this particular round, for whatever reason, the Sagarin numbers work, and we don't step in front of them. However, for the divisional round, there's nothing. There's nothing like that. The divisional round, the prevailing MO is bet against any team that looked good last week. And bet on the red. But usually we have 2 rested teams, in each conference. There's 4 teams laying in wait, and only 2 teams surviving and advancing to play those teams. And now, obviously, with additional playoff games, additional playoff teams, instead of 4 teams lying in wait, there's only 2 teams lying in wait. So the nuance of their whole round changes.
Okay. And Teddy, that actually correlates with Fortnite's question here in the chat box. He's saying he doesn't care about the Monday night. He's not going to be stay off my lawn guy either. But there is no need for a seventh playoff team, as the Steelers and Eagles proved emphatically this past week. What about structurally in the NFL playoffs? Keep in mind, guys, this is the first year the second year they're adding the team. So structurally, it's changed, Teddy. And we only saw one underdog cover. So are they? Is that something you think carries over and maybe look towards the favorites here in the divisional round as well, or you think that's going to be worked out by this time?
If I had to make a bet right now, how many favorites are going to cover this week? The over/under is 2.
Okay.
It's not 1.5. It's not 2.5. It's 2. This historically, again, this has been a favorite round. And the teams that look good last week, the teams that hang 50 burgers last week and then go on the road and play somebody good, they tend to struggle this week. Now, the nuance this year is different. And clearly, I didn't react to the nuance very well in the wild card round. I stunk up the joint for my clients. They all hate me today. We'll see. We'll see if we can navigate the waters a little bit better this week. But there's not a strong prevailing trend where I'm only looking at this side, or there's only one, like Cincinnati versus Vegas. There was only one way I could play that game. Strength of schedule stuff stands out. This isn't that. This week isn't
okay.
That.
Okay. And Fortnite also adding in a good comment here. I like the format as a fan, but would be pissed if my team had to play on Monday night, then the next week have the short week. And keep in mind, they're going to be at Tampa Bay, the winner of tonight's game, Sunday, January 23rd, in the afternoon game on a short week. So having to travel all the way to the state of Florida from the West Coast. Keep that in mind, guys, going 1 week prior. But guys, we're up against it time-wise. I'm Drew Martin. He's Teddy Covers. Throw it over to you, Teddy, for kind of final comments here before we shut it down.
I got nothing, man. Thanks for watching. Please give us a like, give us a follow. We really appreciate it. If you put a comment in the chat, Drew and I both will get in there over the course of the next day or two and do our best to answer as many questions as we can. Appreciate all of the feedback. And I'm glad we were able to give out some good info for you on the show last week because, unfortunately, from a client pick perspective, not one of the better weeks I've had, to put it mildly. So see if we turned it around this week. I'm confident that it's not this isn't going to be one of these playoffs where you're like, every week I'm going to rip my hair out. There are a couple sides that I like this week. We'll see if we can get there. So there you have it, Drew. Thanks for the opportunity. Thanks for always good to work with you, my friend. And we'll talk to you guys next Monday.
Always good to work with you, Teddy. Can see a bounce back coming this weekend, guys. Check him out, WagerTalkSportsMemo.com. Teddy Covers. I am Drew Martin. Huge shout out to the chat box. Huge shout out to the 19,000 people that watched last week and everybody that commented below. Please smash that like button for Teddy Covers. I'm Drew Martin. Best of luck with your bets. We'll talk next Monday, 10 a.m. Pacific time. Come back and join us. Best of luck, guys.
Why pay the regular price when you can save money on every purchase with WagerBucks at both WagerTalk and SportsMemo? WagerBucks are now eligible for use on not just daily, 3-day, and 7-day passes, but all long-term and seasonal packages up to 1 full year. There are tons of options available for every budget and size of bettor. From low as $100 gets $110, all the way up to $2,500 gets you $3,000. Save every day on every pick you buy with WagerBucks.